Okay, hello everyone. I am so happy to be here to share with you Dena Carter. And Dena Carter is someone who I know from when I lived in Ashland. And she is an author, she's a yoga teacher, she's an artist, and she's been practicing body, mind, spirit practices since 2003. So she's quite versed in self-care and this whole arena. And not only that, she's a real human being with real issues. So she has a story around why she's doing this, right? Like the importance of self-care in her own life and how that's been. So that's really great for us to know. Now, I want to just share before we go on just my story of Dena, because she is really an act of self-care for me. When I met Dena in ecstatic dance, and I would seen her in the community, but how I really connected with her was when I was moving out of Ashland. And I was usually, when I move, I usually go into like Nutcaseville in my head, and I was doing really, really well. And then the one day I just hit this wall. It was like the day before we were ready to leave. And I was like, I need support. I need support. So I went to Dena for a reflexology session, and she completely downregulated my whole system, brought me completely grounded. She got to hear me talk and share, and she was so loving and so gentle. And it was like, there wasn't even like any of these major suggestions that she gave. It was just her presence that made me feel so good and so okay with myself. So I just wanted to share that, because it's not that I'm just bringing her on because I know that she's so amazingly an expert in this category, but I had the personal experience of stepping up into my own self-care and being met by her. So without further ado, hi Dena.
Hi, thank you, Marla. That is beautiful.
Yeah. So glad to have you here with us. And this program has been created, this interview has been inspired by the pleasure plan. So I'm right now working with some amazing women on bringing pleasure into the relationship with food, body movement, sexuality. Self-care is a big piece of this, and self-talk. I mean, just the program in itself is saying that they are showing up for self-care, right? So it's under that huge umbrella, right? So I'm curious to what your experience is around self-care and why this is such a passion for you.
Yeah. Self-care is a big passion because I had it was a while ago. It was about 15 years ago. I basically had a breakdown. I had like an emotional breakdown. I was actually living in LA at the time, and it was, to make a long story short, to try to kind of sum it up. First of all, I really had no self-care built into my life at all. I was kind of just going day to day. And I was also having a lot of anxiety and depression. And a lot of kind of obsessive thinking was going on, like a lot. and when I look at it, this had been brewing for some time. In fact, I mean, I experienced depression at a really young age, like around 9 years old. I remember feeling it even then. And just over time, up until my 20s and my 30s, I had that inside. It was happening, the depression, the anxiety, the panic. But I was not dealing with it. I was just going in those ways that we learn to deal with that empty place or the pain, and we're just covering up through whatever thought processes, addictions, whatever it is that we're doing to fill it up, distractions. That had been basically happening for a long, long time. And it wasn't until I think it was about 30 years old, and it's kind of like everything just came to a point where I was really a lot of my choices were I was making to like please other people. I wasn't really in my power. I was just kind of going day to day. I just didn't know what self-care was. And what had happened was, I was just kind of moving so quickly. Eventually what happened was I just couldn't do it anymore. I came to an overwhelm point, and I ended up having to leave Los Angeles, leave my boyfriend, leave my job. And I luckily, I was lucky. I had a friend that took me into Ashland, and she said, just come stay with me. I can tell you're not in a great place. I stayed with her for almost a year, and I kind of kicking and screaming. I really didn't want to leave, but I knew I didn't really have a choice because it wasn't working for me the way I was doing it. And my thoughts, obsessive thinking was getting more and more. And so finally, when I moved to where I am now, it was quieter here, that's for sure. But what it did was it allowed me to kind of I had to surrender. I had to just let go of the kind of crazy way, and I had to just let go. And when I moved here, I don't know exactly at what point, but it felt like it was right away. As soon as I got closer to nature, as soon as I started to simplify my life, and I just was concentrating on, okay, what's the essential for me right now? And at that point for me, it was just surviving.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had to get from day to day. It was like white knuckle. I had to get from day to day at that point. And so for me, day to day was like, okay, then I can't have a lot of this extra stuff. I'm going to have to whittle it down to what is most important here. And I realized what's most important is my life. It's not all what do you think people think of me, or how can I be this great thing or this big thing, or how can I please this person or this boyfriend or this job or be this superstar, whatever it is. And I had to kind of whittle it down and go, well, the most important things are my peace of mind, my health, my life. And all of a sudden my soul became more of the focus of seeing how can I get to these essentials? How can I do this? Well, it was a process, of course, as we all know. It's, self-care, self-love is not necessarily a beautiful process all the time. And so that's, in a nutshell, my story was that I had to just get to this kind of grounding center point and implement some basic things. And as I did that, I realized basically what that was it's self-care. It was including different elements, body, spirit, mind, care, that they all have that in common, and that was the self-care. So it was kind of a wild way to come to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's often when we're really shaken up, right? When we really make the choice, the changes is when we're like, we hit that rock bottom, right? And I love what you're sharing, because it just reminds me that self-care looks different depending on what we're doing in our lives. And you said something in your books. You wrote this really sweet book, Loving Who You Are, a self-care guide to nurture your body, spirit, and mind. It's such a sweet book. One of the things I love about it, it's so, it's very short. So it feels very self-care-esque, that it's not like, okay, now I'm reading this like 400-page book on self-care, like, right? So one of the things you said in here, so the question is, what is self-care? It says self-care starts with accepting yourself as you are now and doing what you need to do to value, honor, and care for yourself. Self-care is about cultivating self-awareness and merges all aspects of your being. So whether you're sitting in silence or talking with a friend, the various choices you make in maintaining self-care are ever changing. And that's what I'm hearing you say. It's like when we're in that place of self-preservation, self-care looks very different, right? It looks like, okay, maybe self-care is put the phone down, or it's move out of Los Angeles, right? Or it's like, just stay in bed. No, I know you want to get out, stay in bed. I want to get out. No, stay in bed, right? It can be that voice that seems a little like firm, but it's really about self-care. Rather than those days we're just having like this luxurious day and we're feeling soft and open. It's like, I think I'll take a walk. That's a self-care gesture. I think I'll take a bath, right? And we often think of self-care as that. taking a bath or, getting a massage. And those are these huge acts that aren't really, they make us feel like we're not caring for ourselves when we're in the situation that you're talking about, right? So it's like self-care is a really big umbrella.
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah, because you're right. It encompasses so much. And not only does it encompass so much in where you are at what time, if it's like you're saying, if it's immediate self-care, is it self-care, I want to make a plan for it and kind of follow this? Is it a self-care, things I want to try for self-care? Is it body, spirit, or mind related?
Yeah.
There's all this stuff. And so it can get overwhelming just going, well, what is this self-care thing? And then that can become overwhelming, right? Just where do I start? And which is, I just want to go back to the book just once and say, that's partially why the book is small. I wanted to just show what the foundation of self-care is. And then from there, then taking a dive in deeper. In other words, like, first of all, like whoever is watching, like, what is your need for self-care now? Is it that you need something right now? Like, are you somewhere and you need to decide, okay, I need to, I'm not feeling very centered, or I'm not feeling very good, or I'm having whatever is going on. Like, is there something that needs to happen immediate? That's really important to identify that.
Yes.
And so there's steps for that. For instance, if that's the case, like you did in the beginning of the video, I don't know if
yeah. Before, just so everyone knows, before we got on, we all centered and took some breaths before we started the recording.
So the big thing, if it's immediate self-care, is to somehow ground yourself. And that can mean getting barefoot, putting your feet on the ground, sitting in a chair, submersing yourself in water, getting into nature. Find a grounding spot, maybe lying down on the floor. But for now, since we're in a chair, our feet are flat on the ground. If that's where you are, it's like you have to just kind of stop. It's like, if it's a now thing, you have to just stop and say, I just need this 5 minutes. And then you inhale your breath and you exhale it. You inhale the breath again, bringing the breath all the way through and then exhaling it. You do this several times till you can just kind of get back here. Mm-hmm. Relax the shoulders, relax your face. And from there, then you can move into, what do I really need right now? Do I need to, do I need, and there could be a million things it can be, but you got to look at the essential. What do you really need in the moment? Do you need to just call a friend? Do you need to, you're at work and you got to, for whatever reason, you got to leave work today. If you're having like an acute experience, or if I'm, maybe you need to, plan, if you can't leave somewhere, plan right in front of you, what it is you're going to need.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's like there has to be a moment to go within and connect within. And I don't know if we're going to go through that right now or not, but I think I don't want to get too lengthy, but the point is, if it's immediate, there needs to be kind of a breathe, a stop, a go within, and then listen, and then make a choice.
Right. That's so good. I love that you're giving that. This is a really good suggestion, because some people don't know. And this is what I hear from so many mothers is like, oh, now you're adding this to my list. Now I have to do self-care. Like, I already have enough things to do. Now I have to be this good woman who does self-care. Now the mother has to, and it's so overwhelming. It's just one more thing on the to-do list. And what we don't realize is that it can take that short of amount of time. It could take, even just what preparing, it could take less than 5 minutes, right? Less.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see, wait,
okay.
For some reason let me figure this out. Claudia is now in the front and center. There we go. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, so it's just literally that minute, that moment, that okay, I just need to breathe here for a second. I need to feel my feet on the ground and I need to take a breath because I can't make any choices. I can't even see straight if I'm not connected to myself. So I think that I'm just so glad you're bringing this in because we need to take this huge concept and make it doable. And your book does that. It makes it very doable. It's very step by step and just like, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. I'm doing this little thing right now. I'm with myself. My adrenals are activated and I'm seeing someone for my thyroid and my adrenals. And when I start to get keyed up, which happens occasionally through the day, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, I'm literally stopping and I'm putting my hands up in the air. I'm connecting my feet and I'm going the whole way down and touching the ground and then just coming back up and taking a breath.
Yeah.
That's about all I can do. Like when I get into that spin, it's challenging for me to completely stop myself because the momentum's already going, but that seems to like cut like it down to like 80%. And then I can be like, okay, how do I want to take this next step? Such a good piece. So tell me, Dena, tell me some of your favorite self-care things that you do. So if it's not just, a moment where you're giving that as a really interesting tool right now, but like what are some of the things that you love to do when you're like, I'm going to have a self-care hour or a self-care afternoon? What are some ideas?
Okay, so for me, the most essential for me to keep, just so that because sometimes I'll hear people say, well, I don't even know what I should do for self-care. I don't even know where to begin. And so, yeah. And so for me, what works for me, it doesn't, everybody is different, of course, but for me, I take in the morning, I get out of bed, and before I talk a lot, before I have communication, before I even eat, I maybe have a banana or something, a glass of warm water with some lemon in it. It's real mellow type of thing. I'm not a lot of input yet because I want my own input to start the day. So, and the connecting in, right? So in the morning, what I do is sometimes I set aside an hour and sometimes it's 30 minutes. Sometimes it's 10 if I haven't, if I've got a lot on my plate. But I go into a little room. I have a little room. I'm in it right now.
I love it.
And, I get my yoga mat out and my little fluffy fur rug that makes me feel really good. And the lights are dim and I sit sometimes it's in silence, sometimes I'm just stretching my body out, moving my body, breathing. Sometimes it's to music, meditation music or chanting, but I'm in that space alone for that, whatever it is, if it's 10, 30 minutes or an hour. And that's how I like to start every day because that gives me a way to know what I'm going to need to do during the day. It gives me a heads up, like, wow, today's going to be a really busy day. Okay. And it's not like I'm sitting there thinking it out. It's coming in and I'm letting it come in. And then by the time I'm done and I walk out of the door, it's like, okay, here we go. But I kind of know what the deal is because I've connected into myself. So that's my favorite thing to do. And without it, things just, they don't work for me. So, and women especially, whether you do it at night or it's whatever it is, I think it's super key.
I agree with you. You're setting yourself up for success is what it is.
Yeah.
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 And I heard that saying. It's something like if you normally meditate 10 minutes and you think you don't have time during the day, you're too busy, then you need to meditate for 20 minutes. So it's the opposite of what we think. It's like, no, if you think you're too busy, you need to do more of it because you need to get grounded and centered.
Absolutely. Because the truth is, if you're not in yourself and if you're not able to it's the classic, right? You can't take care of yourself. How can you take care of other people? But it's true. And why are we valuing ourselves? And that to me, self-care and love and value are like, without it, are we really even, what is life really? I mean, that's kind of a bold thing to say, but truthfully, if we're not valuing ourselves and taking time to know what it is we need, to inquire within or ask for help from someone else to help us, or whatever it is that we need, if we're not valuing that, it's going to be kind of a hit or miss, a little rougher of a ride.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who said, I don't value myself? How am I supposed to do self-care if I just don't? Like, it's not, I want to, I really want to. So how can I do some self-care? I mean, I'm sure it would make me feel better, but like, I don't know. What would you say to that?
Yeah, if the drive is missing, or even the will to carry out a self-care or even feel self-love, because you don't feel that your value is, you can't feel it. Maybe you don't even know what it is. You just can't even feel any. I know, because I felt it before.
Right.
I've been at the point where I realized, wow, I don't even think I love myself. Because I don't really value myself. How can I love myself if I don't value myself enough to give myself love and learn what love really is? Because the truth is, it's nobody's fault. We've all been taught more like fear than we have love. I think we've kind of been taught from a fear-based type of system or thinking, and the truth is so love is foreign, and so therefore valuing ourselves and even knowing how to do that is foreign. So I had to, in order to, it's real primal and real basic stuff, but the first thing, if someone just did not value themselves at all, which was the case with me, what I did was I worked on so it's a mix between two things. One, just looking around and realizing this energy in the world, this source called life, this, whatever you want to call it, we're here. So you exist, I exist, we're here, we're already here. That is value right there. We're in the game, this is the gift of life, and here you are. That is one thing just to value yourself for, that you are here having this experience. So you have value in just being. You don't even need to do anything. You don't even need to feel it and try to feel your value or try to feel your self-love. Just have some reverence for being in this experience. That is value. And everyone has it, or we're here doing this thing,
we're
right?
Here for a reason, even if it's just yeah. And it's the ego that makes us think that we have to do X, Y, and Z, but it's really just our essence that is called here. So good. So if anyone's listening to this and has that feeling, listen to what Dena's saying. It's like connecting to that part of you, and that can be tricky to even find, but it's there. Right.
And it's again, I'm going to go back to the grounding type techniques.
Yes.
Because really, everybody's going, well, I want something really out there and magical to get me to value myself and love myself. I want something really, I've never heard before. But the truth is, it's the basics. It's breathing. It's getting grounded on the earth. It's getting your feet on the earth. Yes. It's getting in nature. It's realizing that this activation of being in this world, this energy of being who we are, is powerful. And just to be starting to kind of swoon and live with that, just that alone is like learning to feel that more. It doesn't feel like a lot at first, but when you start looking around and dropping, it's essential. It's just the essentials.
It is, and what I'm hearing you say is to just break it down is is that people think that when they're so far out of, like, they're in overwhelm, or they're completely like feeling like non-valued or not enough, because we all go through those moments, we think that we can think that we're a lost case, and there's something that we need, and it's so out of touch, and we're so far away, and there must be, like, I must need therapy or whatever it is. I'm not saying you don't, but really it's come back to your breath, know that you're connected to source, you're part of the world, and get your feet on the earth and be connected to nature and be in that space.
Yes.
Put your phone down,
Yes.
disconnect, and connect to yourself in nature. Like, it can be that simple. And some people can say, well, I don't live in nature, whatever. Put your feet on a little patch of earth,
yeah,
on your sidewalk, and just stand there. And who cares who sees you? Do it for 5 minutes, right? So I love that. It's just coming back to the essentials. It's just very, very basic. That's great.
And there's so much going on right now. There's so much input. We're full tilt boogie with it. So the only person that's going to be able to say no is you. The only person that's going to say, no, I don't want to check my Instagram one more time. No, I don't want to be behind the computer. No, I mean, here we are. But there has to be boundaries as well. There has to be just those moments where you're like, no. and trying it out. And sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. I did a lot of that. I just went through the motions. I would hear certain things through people that I liked that had self-care techniques, or that were certain mentors and such. I would just try them on. I would try some of those on and see how it felt, whether I was feeling it or not, just going, just taking the steps anyway, until I started to feel what actually worked for me, what is resonating for me, because everybody's different.
Everyone's different, and depending on where you are in your life. So I love that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any questions, you can maybe unmute yourself, or you can do it in the chat. So I just want to have this available to ask a question if you have a question for Dena around self-care, or something that's going on in your world that you want a little bit of support in. But while we wait for that question or for anything to come through, I just want to say that Dena, like I said, Dena's book is really sweet, and I love it. And there was something else that I had pulled out here. Knowing how to nurture your own heart and emotional process when no one is available to give or share with you is a key component in self-care. And this is what I love. Learning how to nurture yourself takes courage, because there are times when others won't be able to nurture you when you need it most. And I think that we need to really honor that place of stepping into self-care. It is courageous, because we are told in our society that we're just supposed to keep going, and we're supposed to put everyone last, and to stay centered in, no, I'm going to have to say, I'm going to have to put up a boundary here. And no, you may not like it, but it's courageous for me to do that. And that is like saying no to your mom that you're not going to Sunday dinner, or not coming home, or like, there's so many different ways that shows up, right? And being courageous to stand in there and let someone else have their reaction and still be okay with it. And that's really tricky, especially for me. I'm definitely a people pleaser. So it's like, if they're upset, then I'm not enjoying it anyway. So may as well just do what they want, right? It's taken me so long to stand in that for myself. Yeah.
For sure. And especially as women, we are huge. We're such nurturers and givers. And especially if you're even more tending to be that way, or you're more empathic or more sensitive, more intuitive, that's a lot to learn how to still be doing that. It's like you're spinning plates. I'm still learning how to do this, but wait, no. And so it takes time. I think again, when you give yourself time alone, permission to spend some time alone, is where you can get more clear on when and who it is maybe, or what, that you need to establish, whether it's a boundary or more of what you want. It's spending a little bit more time alone. It's also, I wanted to touch on one more thing because of the value part is that what happens too is, I think we're afraid of what it looks like a lot of times, and to be in that empty, even in an empty place where maybe we don't know what to do sometimes, and to be okay in that empty place. Because when we go to love ourselves, that empty place can feel like that place of either it's too overwhelming to be there, or we want to like bolt and run, or we want to try to cover it up with some kind of habit or something. But the process is learning to, I think, be more in that empty place as we build it up and fill it up more with what it is that feels healthier. And it takes time to fill something up that's empty. And the empty part is usually that fear place, or that place we want to run from, or the depression, or the overeating, or the obsession, whatever it is. So we have to be careful when we come to that place, that little chasm, that place we want to leap over, but maybe we're not ready to do it, and just take this stuff kind of bite size. The body, the spirit, the mind. What do I need the most today? Is it more of body? Is it more of my mind? Is it more some kind of spiritual, and again, trying to get them down to essentials, remembering the heart center, and your knowing, and seeing what is it that I need the most in that loving way. It takes time. It's a process.
It's process. And what I'm hearing you is that there's patience that's needed. And yes, one of the main reasons we don't do self-care is because of that the fear of that place, that soft spot. It's the reason we turn to food, or we turn to any sort of distraction, is the fear of feeling whatever that emptiness or what, and we all have those. So I'm really glad that you brought that up as self-care, and it's very honest, right? It's super honest, because people just want to, like I said, they just want to put like an article around self-care, like take a walk, do this. It's like, no, it's deeper than that. Like it is, when we come up against these places, we find that sadness, we find that fear, and it's like, okay, this is a moment to be gentle and loving with myself. Yeah,
it is.
Yes. So I want us to wrap up here.
Okay.
And I want to just share with you all that Dena is, she can found on Facebook. It's DenaLeeCarter.com. So that's Leigh. That's the Lee, Dena Lee Carter. And I'll definitely post this. But she's just someone you want to be in touch with. I mean, I find Dena to be very approachable and loving, and she does wonderful workshops on self-care. And I feel like all that you're doing and that you're standing for, whether you're teaching yoga or you're having a conversation with someone, is coming from your heart. And that is a really, when we feel that in other people, we get to experience it even more within ourselves. So I just thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share before we close?
My pleasure, Marla. And I know that Anna and Claudia and lots of other people. So, I just want to say thank you, because I love what you're doing. I love how you are bringing women together, and you are sharing your story. They're getting to share their stories. We're all getting to share our stories, and it's about sharing. Each person has a gift. Mm-hmm. We all have a gift, and we want to share it. And so coming together to be able to share it is really nice. And part of even the self-care journey is getting to know what are your gifts, and giving yourself time to focus more on what those gifts might be. Yeah. Even through your process of healing, starting to inquire, what are my gifts, as you start
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to end, because we want to end on the feeling of self-confidence. Like, where are we already doing self-care? Where are we already in alignment? You know, it's not about filling in the gaps. Sometimes it's just acknowledging what already is present. So that's a wonderful way to lead us off. Thank you so much, Dena. So appreciate you being here. Yay, we did it! Thank you, everyone.